Welcome back to the Malt Miller YouTube channel. Today we are looking at a subject that we here have been researching for a little while now. What is it, Jim?
Thiols, Rob. Right, Thiols then, Rob. Now, we've been doing loads of research into this, and we're going to be putting a lot of that to the test today because we're going to be brewing some beer and seeing what we can do with this concept around Thiols that's really starting to emerge within both professional and home brewing. But before we go too far down the road of the recipes we're going to be brewing and that kind of stuff, it's probably worth us taking a moment now just to delve into a little bit about what Thiols are. So take us through it.
Thiols are aroma compounds that are within the organic materials that we're going to be using within the brewing process, and that includes malt and hops.
Yep.
Now they're aroma compounds. Some of them are available and come out during the brewing process. Others are what they call locked, and they need processes, methods, or other ingredients to let them escape so that we can have a sensory uplift in the actual drinking of the final product.
Yeah, so we've got Thiols that are freely available already,
Yeah.
and those are actually what show up in beer: the smell of the malt, the smell of the hops, you know, all of those flavors and aromas we associate with some of our much loved favorite hops.
Yeah.
But then, to your point, the bound, the locked Thiols are the ones that up until recently we haven't been able to get access to and actually experience. It's really exciting.
Exactly, and we can use various different methods and ingredients to help boost those, to help free them so that they become available in that final beer.
Yeah, and the Thiols that can be released express themselves in loads of different ways, and there's actually different Thiols. We won't go into too much about that. There's a really good article which I'll put in the description below for you to have a read up on it. But they show up in loads of different flavors, whether it's from berries and sort of red fruit and that kind of stuff, all the way through to tropical passion fruit, guava, all those kind of things. And that's really what we want to try and unlock and express in some of these beers. We've recently tried the beers from Track that use some of this, and I mean, they're off the chart, aren't they?
Yeah, the various different beers that we've tried, but they've all got that similar expressiveness about them.
Yeah, and it is an aroma experience that is unlike something else.
Yeah, definitely.
It's totally new and really exciting.
Yeah. So, by way of testing some of our methods and our theories, we've come up with a couple of recipes that we're going to brew to see how we get on. James, where are you going?
Well, Rob, I'm going to be brewing a recipe that I know and love, and it's our Verdant light bulb clone.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know, I've brewed it so many times. It's an absolute staple on my kegerator at home.
Yeah.
I'm going to be deploying three specific tactics here, right? The first that I'm going to be using is mash hopping.
Yeah.
Now, mash hopping has been around for a very long time. I mean, you did it originally when you started homebrewing,
Yeah, it
didn't
was
you?
way back in the day we were doing that.
Yeah. But by adding the right hops into the mash in the right quantities, we can actually incorporate a lot of the bound Thiols, which will then be released later on in the brewing process. And we choose specific hops that we know are high in bound Thiols.
Yeah.
There's loads available, and again, if you read that article that I've got in the description, it'll help you with that. I'm going to be using Cascade.
We love it here at Malt Miller.
Oh no, it's an absolute joy to drink, so really looking forward to seeing how that shows up. The second tactic that I'm going to be using is a Thiolised yeast. Now this is kind of an essential part of any beer where you're trying to unlock the Thiols, because it's that yeast that is releasing the Thiols from being in their bound state to their unbound state, right? Now in the States, there are lots and lots of these yeasts available.
Yeah, the ones that we can't have because they're GM yeast.
Yeah. But we're really lucky now that there are a couple available here commercially in the UK.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be using Hop Unlock from WHC.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I'm going to be doing, I guess this is the third, it's kind of the third and slash fourth. I'm going to be dry hopping at high Krausen rather than waiting towards the end of fermentation.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm also going to be including Phantasm. Now, that's my recipe. Really interested to see how it turns out. Rob, tell us about yours.
I'm doing a totally different track because I want to boost the malt aroma in my beer.
Yep.
So I started thinking about some of my favourite malty beers, and Fest beer was just there. I want something that's really drinkable with some body to it.
Yep.
A real crushable beer.
Crushable, but full and satisfying as well, right?
Exactly that. And it's not traditionally, obviously, it's not about the hops at all. So I'm pushing. The idea started off as a Fest beer. It's not going to end up as a Fest beer, but that's kind of where my ideas started.
It's a homage to that style, right?
Exactly. So remembering that I'm trying to boost malt flavours.
Yep.
So standard Fest beer recipe, really, using European Pilsner malt and Munich malts. But I'm going to be doing a split batch.
Yep.
So I'm going to be using hop unlock yeast and Phantasm for half the batch. And the other batch, I'm just using the Sapphire, the S189 yeast, and seeing how different the beers come out.
Awesome. Well, look, these both sound like they're really interesting and very different approaches to this. What's really cool is that we're going to both be using Phantasm. Now, this is a product that you've sourced here in the UK for us, and I know you're massively excited about. For anybody watching, Rob, what is Phantasm?
Our Phantasm's really difficult to get a hold of. That's what Phantasm is. They've had it in the States for a while. We contacted Phantasm. They're based over in New Zealand. Right at the very first time I'd ever heard of Phantasm, we were straight there. They really weren't interested in us. It's been a real struggle. We've been able to get it in the States. Actually, we found the European distributor, contacted them. They were great, and now we are the UK distributor of Phantasm, and we're selling it out to home brewers. We're also selling it out to a lot of breweries. So really exciting project.
What is it though?
It's grape skins.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's New Zealand grape skins that have been dried and powdered.
Yeah.
And it looks like a grainy powder.
Yeah, it's like a brownie sort of grey powder, isn't it? And the key to this is it's grape skins from Sauvignon Blanc grapes grown in the Marlborough region, which in winemaking are known to be really, really high in the thiol stuff and the precursors and everything to do with thiols. Yeah. So that's why it's so prevalent, right? And it's going to boost that tropical aroma.
Exactly. So you can use it in different stages of the brewing process. I'm using at high Krausen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wait for the beer to start fermenting. Bosh, there it goes. It can also be used in the whirlpool.
I think that's enough about our recipes and our experiments. We're going to get these beers brewed, and then on the other side of this, we're going to do our taste tests, right? So stick around, enjoy the next bit where we're going to be showing you the brew date, and we'll see you shortly. Fast forward 3 weeks, we're done. Our beers have fully fermented out. We've had our dry hop period. We've kegged our beers, haven't we, Rob? And now we're ready to see exactly what we've achieved with our Thiolised experiment. Are you excited?
I am. And actually, we kegged our beers last night. We've had them in the kegerator overnight. They're ready to pour. This should be a really interesting experiment.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. But before we jump into tasting the beers, just a little word on fermentation and how things went, because obviously we did some stuff during fermentation to try and really boost that whole thiol presence. So how did things go with you? Because you did your split batch, you know, all your dry hopping, or rather than dry hopping, more dry phantasming. Yeah, how'd it go?
Actually, it was fine. Well, I say that. The one that I didn't put the Phantasm in, literally, put it in the fermenter. Bosh, that's where it stayed. Haven't even looked at it, touched it, or anything until we kegged it yesterday.
Yeah.
So that was that one. The one that we put the Phantasm in, I let ferment overnight, and then undid the fermenter and put the Phantasm in, and we had an absolute shocker. So we have the first learnings from this are, if you have Phantasm into a beer that's already started fermenting, you're adding about 1 billion nucleation points, and it just erupted out of the fermenter and caused a massive mess. We didn't get the dosage right because obviously some of it erupted out of the fermenter, and it had us all laughing and trying to do up caps. It was a three-handed job. It was just
there was lots of spraying down with sanitizer and
it was actually quite amusing. So don't do what we did.
Well, my set of events was far less high octane than yours. Pretty straightforward. I added the dry hop at High Krausen. I added the Phantasm at High Krausen. Similar to you though, even adding it into a standard fermenter, because you were using the little Fermenter King Juniors to do a split batch.
Yeah.
Even adding it into my fermenter, we clipped the lid back on, and the airlock just went bonkers,
absolutely crazy, didn't it?
Yeah, all those nucleation points, like you say, just knock any carbon dioxide that's in suspension out.
Booming out.
But I mean, the smells coming out of both of your brew and my brew, the fermenters, they were unreal. Really, really interesting. So I think with that, it's probably time to pour ourselves a beer and see how we've got on. Should we start with mine?
Yeah, let's start with yours.
Cool. Here we go then, Rob. So this is my Thiolised version of our light bulb clone, right? Our Verdant light bulb kit. Now, before we jump into getting some of this in our mouth and trying it, I think the very first thing to point out is that light bulb isn't pin bright. This is.
Yeah,
so
you've managed to make a clear beer, James.
Yeah, when I wasn't actually intending on, which that's not normally my forte. It's normally the other way around. But I think one thing we do know is that the Verdant IPA yeast, that's the traditional yeast in that recipe, does leave a haze in the beer, right? Hop unlock, in our experience when we've used it before, drops really bright.
Yeah.
So I think before I even smell or taste this, one thing I would look to do if I were going to rebrew this is switch out the oats with the husks to a large proportion of flaked oats.
Yeah.
So
because you get more oat for pound.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it looks great. If we kind of put that aside, it looks great. Just going for a smell. Okay, what are you getting?
Well, it doesn't smell like light bulb.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So it's a very strong aroma, and it's a very strong passion fruit and that fleshy tropical fruit.
Okay, yeah.
Smell.
Yeah, I'm getting
like
that.
Almost like pawpaw and that type of fleshy tropical fruit, more than
overripe mango.
It's not. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's not citrus.
No, it's interesting because the hops that go into this are Centennial and Simcoe.
Yeah.
Obviously, we did the mash hopping with Cascade. Now we know that the mash hopping with Cascade, when it unlocks the Thiols, does release like strong tropical fruit flavors, aromas rather, and I think that's probably what I'm getting. The other thing I'm getting is, as we've experienced with other beers that have used hop unlock, and almost ever so slight menthol thing going on. It's not mint, it's not menthol, but it's like a freshness, like an undertone of freshness, almost like undescribable, zippy, that I can't quite put my finger on. And I've noticed that in almost all beers that I've had that have used this yeast. So it's really interesting that that's there with this recipe.
It's a strong aroma. I mean, it's fully
pretty
there,
heavy.
isn't it?
Yeah. Should we give it a go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cheers. It's not light bulb.
No, it's nothing like that.
No, it's actually attenuated far lower, so it's quite crisp and like clean finishing.
Yeah.
The bitterness is still there, but it's really subtle because it's not a really strong bitterness anyway in this beer, in this recipe rather. but it's some of that tropical character is still there in the beer, right? But it's not as prevalent as the aroma. Now that's going to be the whole aroma-based side of Thiols really playing out rather than flavour, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I've got a few things about this beer actually. I think that the aroma is too strong for the actual backup of the flavour of the beer.
Yeah, okay.
So if
Not quite in balance with each other.
No, it's not. The aroma is way stronger than the actual flavour of the beer, almost to the point where it's making the beer taste a little thin.
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
So probably actually it's better if we talk about our learnings from this after we've tasted mine as well, because there might be more to discuss there. But it's definitely, it's a really drinkable beer, and like you say, it's almost crisper than you would expect for this recipe.
Yeah, really interesting. Right, so we move on to your malty boy, see how we get on, and then do a bit of a sum up. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
2 beers. We have S189.
Yeah.
And we have Hop Unlock and Phantasm.
Okay, so left-hand side is our Thiolised version of your fest beer.
Yeah.
And then this side is a more traditional fermented under pressure, both of them, version of it, right?
Yeah, and obviously it has to be said, S189, you would normally have a long lagering period.
Yeah.
This is 3 weeks, done at ambient temperature in the warehouse, which is actually at this during our summer has been ranging from probably 25 degrees at its maximum, probably down to
maybe 10 or something
exactly
like that at night.
at night. So it's been massively fluctuating all over the place.
Well, I think we should probably kick things off with the traditional version. I say traditional, you know what I mean, with a traditional lager yeast, right? I mean, appearance-wise, it's already
honestly,
quite bright,
yeah,
which is lovely. Yeah. It's a deep dark colour, which you would expect for the style.
The colour is absolutely bang on in it. I'm really pleased with the colour.
Right, let's give it a little.
A nice white
sort of
head, as creamy white head as well. That's lasting. I mean, this has been in the glass for a little while now.
Yeah. Should we give it a sniff? Oh.
Full on malt boy.
Yeah, caramel.
Yeah.
Bread. Subtle orange notes.
Yeah, it's Munich
It's got
malt.
a lot of Munich, right?
Yeah, it's Munich malt. It really is that.
Oh yeah. Right, let's go in. Give it a try.
That's a good boy.
That is. I have to remember, this is our test subject, right? This is our control.
I still am amazed every time we pressure ferment something, just how good a beer that you can make in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and there's a lovely sort of cleansing bitterness at the end.
Yeah.
It just makes you want to go back for some more.
Yeah, it's a really nice beer.
But this is science, so we need to try it against its counterpart.
Noticing already, different colour. It's not as clear. It's not dropped as clear, which is funny enough because we've used the hop unlock in it.
Yeah, and in my one, it's dropped really clear.
Yeah, it's dropped really clear. This one definitely is not as clear. Rocky head that is absolutely
like sticking around for days, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely there.
Right, and let's go in for a smell. I mean, you're right. It's nowhere near as clear, but we've got to remember this is an ale yeast we've used. Really, hop unlock, you know.
Yeah, but we've had it drop clear in almost every other beer we've tried. But you know, that's.
Right, let's go and give it a sniff. Okay.
It's totally different.
It is completely different. I'm getting the same caramel breadiness, but there's a more pronounced orange kind of thing going on. Citrus orange. No, not citrus orange, more marmalade.
Yeah. Dark fruit.
Yeah, a little bit raisiny. I mean, if I'm really honest, we're looking at something that smells more akin to an ESB.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Much more English.
Yeah.
English style rather than. I've got to go in.
Yeah, me too.
I can't believe the difference. I literally can't believe the difference. So that is exactly what I was heading for. That's what I want. I want that crisp, really drinkable, but really strong,
wholesome
malt. I thought that this would be like that, but supercharged. And actually what's happened is it tastes like an English ESB.
Yeah, yeah, with very strong fruit notes.
Yeah, yeah, it's like
Very
that.
strong.
It's like that super dark fruit.
Dare I use the term, but hedgerowy.
Oh, I don't know about that, James.
Yeah, dark fruits, black currants, blackberries, plums. Yeah.
If I was served that, if I didn't know what I was drinking and someone just bought me a pint, I would just like that.
Yeah.
That would be, oh yes, it's an English ESB.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And exactly the same work. Obviously, we've done our Phantasm and we've used a Thiolised yeast with hop unlock. Just completely different. What a difference.
Massive difference.
Yeah, awesome.
I think that this shows us a good number of things. And remember that we are right at the beginning of our learning journey with this product at the moment. So what can we take from it so far? For me, I think that the biggest thing that I'll take from this is design a beer around Phantasm and anything to do with boosting the thiol aromas. What I wouldn't do is actually put it in a recipe that you've got to base the beer around it rather than making something that you've made before.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because what it's done is it has shown us that the processes make a difference.
Oh, it's not just a difference.
Yeah.
It's like night and day.
So if you would like to experiment, then a starting point of choosing a recipe that you know, and maybe doing a split batch like we did, or doing something just to really help your understanding of the product and the impact it can have is quite interesting. But absolutely, building your recipe around the products for your first real big foray into it could be a really good way to go as well. I think certainly for my light bulb recipe, it's shown me that that's probably the one that highlights it the most. We changed quite a few things. We did 3 fundamental changes to that recipe. I would absolutely revisit that and start from the ground up because I think in there is the basis of a really good, big, juicy, hoppy pale ale.
Yeah, so do I. And actually, I think it proves that you would use in Phantasm, you can actually use less hop, which is actually what it's about to get the same aroma.
Yeah.
But then it needs to be backed up with more flavour because you've boosted that aroma. So
yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting. For me, I would switch out, like I said, the oats with the husks to a bigger flaked adjunct hit to give me more body. I'd mash it at a higher temperature. I think as well, I'd probably play around with my dry hopping. Yeah. Beef up the dry hop maybe on that recipe because it's a fairly small dry hop in comparison to some other, juicy pale ales that I've made before. But I'd still split it and I'd do some when the Phantasm goes in, and then I'd do some at the end of fermentation as well. But that's the joy of it, right? You can play around.
I think it proves that we've made 3 really drinkable beers, and certainly for mine, 2 completely different flavours. And actually, so the basis of my experiment was, does Phantasm boost the malt aroma in a beer? And actually, I don't know about boosting it. I do know about changing it.
Yeah. I completely agree. They're 2 different beers, right? 2 very different beers, but it's almost like they share a heritage.
Yeah.
We hope this has given you the confidence to have a go at some of these Thiolised tactics in your next brew. If you've already tried some beers that deploy some of this stuff, we want to hear about how you got on. So please hit us up in the comments below, share what your findings were, share what your understanding of the new products that we've discussed here are, because we want to see what we can do to incorporate your learning into our journey so that we can pass it on to even more of our customers, right?
We've got stacks of information on our YouTube channel, so remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and of course you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.
Cheers.
Cheers. Have a great brew.